thinking, how's the best way I can do this? Actually, let's see if I can. Ooh, here's an idea. Bear with me a second if anyone is in. If I can. I mean, you can tell how well set up I am for streaming. I want to see if I can sort of get like an overhead. So you can see here. Perfect. Okay. So now, I forgot to get something. Bear with me. Sorry. See, perfect timing. Because that finished. Let me turn off my oven so that I can smell the burning. Okay. So this is final shaping. And for this, we are going to use flour. Now we have to be careful about how much flour you use. I got 4 doughs. You can see 2 here, 1, 2. And there's actually 1 there and 1 here. So there are 2 different ways that we're going to do the final shaping. Now, the final shaping is what we're going to do to give you, I mean, it's called the final shape. It'll be the final shape of your sourdough. There are 2 primary ways of doing it. Just keeping it round like this, called a boule, or making an oval one, which is what I normally do, called the batard. I particularly like the oval one because I think it makes sandwiches better. But aesthetically, and as far as if you're doing this for a first time, I would highly suggest the boule. They look more like sourdough loaves, and they're much easier to shape. I did boules for a long time, and then I forced myself to do batard because, again, boules are just way easier to shape, in my opinion. So I have these things called bannetons here. These are just proofing baskets. You do not have to go out and get these. These are just because I bake so many loaves at once, I have, I think, about 12 of these. So I have 4 of the round ones and 8 of the oval ones. So here I'm going to make 2 and 2, 2 oval and 2 round. And when I'm done with the final shaping, I'll explain what happens next. But first, let's see how we actually do the shaping. So I'm going to have my handy dandy bench scraper, and I am this time going to dust the tops, just the tops of each of the dough, just a little bit, right? Little bit. Actually, maybe a little bit more. Now, this is okay because the flour that you see here, I'm going to sort of rub it over. This is the top of the dough. It's because the skin should be taut. This flour should not get incorporated with the dough. And before I continue, I should tell you I actually use brown rice flour for this. The brown rice flour doesn't get stuck to the bread as much, and it mostly falls off. It just looks better. But you can use regular all-purpose flour. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to dust this. This is now like no stick at all, right? No stick. So first I'm going to show you how to make a batard. And the first thing we're going to do is actually flip this over. So I'm going to take my bench scraper and gently yet forcefully, I'm going to sort of like unstick it from the table. Unstick it. And then in one smooth motion, I'm going to scoop it up and turn it over. Right, just like that. It looks a lot easier. It took me a lot of practice. It looks a lot easier than it is, and it took me a lot of practice to get to this point. So now you have the flour side down, and now what I'm literally going to do is stretch one side and fold it into the middle. Stretch the other side, fold it into the middle. Now you got like corner. I'm going to take corner here in the middle, opposite corner in the middle. Do the final corner in the middle. Notice I'm like not pulling too hard, just stretching a little bit and folding everything to the middle so that I got this like nice peak here. Now, once everything's folded, I'm going to flip it over again, right? I want to flip it over. I'm gonna turn and pull, turn and pull, turn and pull. I'm letting the friction on the bottom. Remember, there shouldn't be a lot of flour on the bottom of this. I put all the flour on the top here. Should not be a lot of friction. There shouldn't be a lack of friction on the bottom. So I'm letting the friction pack all the dough very tightly into the middle. And if you actually can see, I don't know if the video can show it, there's like a nice bubble here. If you see a really, really big bubble, gently tap it out. Those big bubbles can make really big bubbles inside of your loaf. So you do want to get rid of the really giant ones. So here, just turn, just give it a few turns. I can feel how tightly packed it is. Okay. Now that this is tightly packed, what I like to do is, just so that this doesn't stick in my banneton, I'll take a little flour and I'll just rub it on the top again. Just rub it on there. Got my banneton. Right, put it here. I'm gonna scoop it from the bottom and put the seam side up. Scoop from the bottom, and I'm putting it in seam side up. Okay, so let's do that again with this one. Okay, so let's get rid of some of the bread flour. Right, again, I want to incorporate as little brown rice flour, as possible. So I'm going to have brown rice, put it on a nice little coating so it doesn't stick. Unstick the bottom a little bit. Try to do it gently. And then one fell swoop. Again, when I do that, I like push it and then let it fall down. Okay? Now, pull in the middle, other side in the middle, one corner, opposite corner, last corner, right in the middle, just like that, right? You can push it a little bit. You want to make sure that it's nice, it's staying together. Now, you could use a bench scraper to flip it over. I've done this enough where I could just use your hands. And then we're going to turn and pull, turn and pull. When you get really good, the really good bakers know how to do that. But turn and pull. You can use your pinkies to pull. You want to get the skin nice and taut. Pull, turn and pull. Right, nice. You can see it. There's some bubbles, but a really tight skin over it. That's what you want. It'll allow it to expand uniformly, and it'll just look nicer and be better. Got my banneton. Seams on the bottom. Well, before we do that, let's make sure we put some flour on. I don't want the top to be sticking inside the banneton. That's why I like these bannetons. They have these little towels, so even if it does stick, you can take the towel off and then peel it off without really messing up your loaf. So that's just another benefit. But then again, if you don't have this, you get a nice little pattern on your dough, on your loaf. Really cool. Anyway, so put a little rice flour, and then I'm going to put it in my banneton, seam side up. So those are boules. Batards, full disclosure, I'm not good at shaping batards. I do what I can. You'll notice my boules are fine. You get nice taut balls of dough. With batards, I am not particularly good at it. And I'm trying to get better at it, trying to find different ways. But as far as batards go, right, so I took my dough, I loosened it up on the bottom, flipped it over so it seams side down. So for batard is a bit different. I'm going to try to sort of manually shape it so that I have a little bit of a rectangle. And then the one video I saw that makes it really easy to remember what to do is head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I'm going to take this head, just fold it down, literally pull and fold it down a little bit. And then I'm going to sort of stitch together shoulders, knees, and toes. So I'm going to stitch it together like this. I see some big bubbles. I'm going to pop them. I stitch it together like this, and then I'm going to roll and pull, roll and pull, roll and pull, roll and pull. There's your petard. I like to pinch the sides shut so that you get that nice loaf looking roll. As I said, I'm so bad at this. This is definitely not one of my, I'm much better at making the boules than I am at the petards, but here's your petard. Okay. Same thing as before. Let's put on some brown rice flour. I'm gonna put it on there. Now, got my oval petard, my oval banneton. And again, it doesn't have to be a banneton. It can be any oval apparatus if you're making a petard. That's why people generally also start with boules, because you got glass bowls. So you can just make a boule and throw it into a glass bowl. Whatever you choose, I would choose ceramic, stainless steel, or whatever, something that would non-stick. Non-stick is always better. But yeah, so again, seam side up. So I'm going to scrape it up. There it is. There's your seam. Seam side up. Just put it in a little nicely. I will say there's something about a petard where you almost feel like you're holding a little baby when you put in the petard. So I'll show you the petard one more time. Again, this is the method. I saw some lady do it on YouTube, and I thought it was a great way to remember how to do it, because petard, I think, is a little bit more, it takes a little bit more to shape, in my opinion, a petard than it does a boule. So I like the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You know, it's always a good reminder. Loosening up this last piece of dough. There we go. So I'm going to make a nice little rectangle as best as I can. Okay. Now head, shoulders, knees, and toes. It doesn't have to be perfect. The whole point is you're just trying to pack the dough in there and get it nice and taut. That is the entire point. Okay. Again, if you see really big bubbles, pop them. Okay. And sort of like stitch this up. Sometimes I like to see if I can fold this over so that it really stays shut. But this is actually not a terrible petard. If I look at other people doing it on YouTube and they have really, really taut skin, I can never get it. It doesn't affect the rolls. I think my sourdough comes out well anyway. For those of you who have eaten it, I'm sure you know what I mean. So a little bit of brown flour on there. That, put it in there. Okay, so that's final shaping. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Notice, if I'm looking at the boules, the stitches are already kind of opening up. If you want to, you can try to stitch it back in. Just try to keep it closed as best as you can. But I mean, it's not a big deal because it's gonna do a second rise. Okay, so that's how you shape. Now you have a choice about what you want to do. So what I could do is I could let this sit out on the counter for about 2 to 3 hours and let it do what's called a second proof. It's basically fermenting yet again, and it'll grow in size and really puff up. So that is a possibility of what I could do. I could just let it sit out for 2 hours and then bake it. I almost never do that. That's why I'm baking today. That's why I'm preparing today as opposed to tomorrow. Because the other method is to do something called a retarding method, which is you put it in the fridge and you basically let it sit overnight. And the advantage of that is I'm done with this batch for right now, and I can move on with my life and worry about baking it tomorrow. But B, what I like about it is that I'm not a huge fan of the actual sour, like really sour dough. And according to Thomas Teffrey Chambellan, again, can't pronounce French, he showed me a graph in his book where bacterial activity is essentially nil in the fridge, but yeast activity is very, very tiny. What does that mean for us? Well, that means that there's no lactofermentation. There's no production of acetic acid or lactic acid while the dough's in the fridge. The only thing that's being produced is carbon dioxide. So if acetic acid and lactic acid are the two chemicals or the two compounds that are giving the bread its sour taste, if you just put it directly into the fridge and you only allow the yeast to do its thing, then all you'll get is just the same rise, but without the added sourness. So I tend to do that. I also like to have fresh loaves for Shabbos. Who doesn't? So if I'm doing this now, why would I bake them tonight when I can bake them before Shabbos? So the final thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to put all of these in plastic bags. You don't have to. A lot of people just put them in their fridge and just cover them with a kitchen towel. The point is you just don't want it to dry out. That's really the only thing you're trying to do. I used to put them in a shopping bag, put them in a Kroger bag or something like that. That's what I used to do as well. But I get a little paranoid, and because I bake a lot, I go on Amazon and get these giant like plastic bags that can hold each one that look like this. Get 100 of these on Amazon for, I don't know, $5. And I literally put each of them in a bag, and then I'll put them in the fridge. My hands are a little dry. There we go. So here's one. One boule, two boule, one batard, two batard. And then if you're watching this video, you could probably skip to the point where I finish putting all these in, because I'm actually terrible at multitasking. That's why if what I'm saying and what I'm doing seem a little discordant, it's because I'm not a particularly good multitasker. All right, that's two. This is three. Here's four. And I'm literally going to just put this in the fridge. You should let it stay in the fridge if you're going to do the retarding method, probably for at least 12 hours. There have been times when I do it on Wednesday night and then bake it on Friday. So 12 to 48 hours is generally fine. But yeah, that will be sufficient. Okay, so I got my 4 loaves here. I'm going to put them in the fridge, let them proof overnight. So they're going to rise quite a bit. They're filling with air, which is what you want. Air is good. It's what gives it the nice, light, airy texture and the open crumb and everything about the bread that makes it taste amazing. And tomorrow there's only going to be one video where we actually bake it. There's only 2 more steps to go, which is we are going to score the bread, and then we're going to bake the bread, and then it'll be ready to eat about an hour after it bakes. Now, I just want to make something a little clear here, is that I can see that this video is coming up on 20 minutes. If I wasn't explaining this to you, and I've been doing this for a little while now, not like 10 years, a year and a half, it would take me about 5 minutes to do the final shaping and putting them in these bags and putting them away. It would take me about 3 minutes to do the dividing and pre-shaping. As a matter of fact, between the time I was waiting from dividing and pre-shaping until this next step, I was actually able to get my next batch already going, which was putting the flour in, putting in my levain, putting in the water, mixing it up, and it's currently auto leasing right now. So I don't want it to seem like this is a daunting effort. It's the kind of thing where once you get into the habit of it, it becomes a habit and it becomes very easy to do. If it seems complicated, I'm sorry. And I never meant for it to look like it's complicated. It really is not that complicated. But I'll try to work on, say, a worksheet / a set of directions that I will also post in our WhatsApp group. And yeah, if you want to give it a shot or if you have any questions, I am available. But I will probably be baking tomorrow, if I had to guess, at around 11 a.m. for the first batch, and then probably 3 p.m. for the second batch. So yeah, I'll explain what to do next time. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Until then.